Hello everybody, welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing you a brand new review, and today it's going to be another 4K UHD Blu-Ray review, as of course Oppenheimer is now out in the United Kingdom, out in America, wherever you buy your films. It has been released this week, and strangely enough it was released on Wednesday here in the UK. Normally our releases are Mondays. It was very strange for them to hold it off for 2 more days. It wasn't because of like the 90-day rule or anything like that. I think it was just because they wanted it after America, which is a bit strange, but oh well, there we go. Someone else might be able to prove me wrong. But I'm going to be giving my thoughts. I have, of course, rewatched the film. I've seen this film many times. I'll begin talking about my thoughts on the films, but also I'm going to talk about the audio track with that film. I'm also going to be talking about the special features, because there's a lot of them. There's a lot to talk about, which is very exciting given how a couple of reviews have gone recently. But as always, I'm going to kickstart with my thoughts, and safe to say, for anybody who maybe hasn't followed the channel before, it's quite clearly my film of the year. I say so far, technically still so far. There's a couple more films coming out. I'm still going through most of the films I want to watch for this year, but I think it's fair to say this is going to be my film of the year, and it has been since I watched it back in July, as of course taking part with Oppenheimer, which I'll talk in detail about, because this film would go on to make over $950 million at the box office. Anyone that told you that could get that high is lying. Anyone that told you they thought it could get more than maybe 500, 600 doesn't have a clue. This is one of the biggest surprises of the year. The same thing with Barbie at $1.4 billion. The fact that a biopic on the man that made the nuclear bomb, a 3-hour drama, made that much money, was that big in respect to audiences, word of mouth, IMAX performances, is astronomical that it would go on to do so well as it has. I mean, say going on to do so well, we haven't even got to Oscar season properly yet. The end is not done for this film at the box office, maybe. The end is not done for this film for its recognition. I'm sure it's going to be on a lot of top 10 lists for people this year. I'm sure it's going to do very well at varying different awards ceremonies, and that's kind of really exciting for me. Of course, Nolan is my favourite director. Everybody knows that. And my thoughts on the film itself, I think it's a masterpiece. I think it is the film that his career has built towards. His film has been... foundation has been built upon, with actors coming back that have been with him before, bringing on some new faces, Cillian Murphy being put into the lead, to make it as interesting as it was, and to then actually go with the ending of the film being a court drama for the final act rather than the nuclear bomb going off. I actually thought was one of the best surprises of the year, if I'm being completely honest, and I absolutely adore this film. The more I've thought about it, this was the 4th time I've seen it, talking about this. If anyone's curious about my first 3 viewings, I did release day 8 AM at the BFI IMAX in London, so I got to watch it on 70mm IMAX. That is the place to watch a Christopher Nolan film. I've seen Dunkirk there, I've seen Tenet there, I've seen The Dark Knight there, I've now seen Oppenheimer there. I'd love to see Interstellar and Inception, but when they come on it's very sporadic, and it's hard to get down to London sometimes, especially for films I've seen, and I've seen them many times over the years. So I do want to try and see as many as I can, but it is the place to go for Nolan films. And I just got to say, the atmosphere on Barbenheimer Day, 8 AM, there were people in pink, there were people in black, I was in the black suit. It was just an experience that I've never felt like in the industry, and even though I didn't get to see Barbie on that same day, how that did with the weeks that followed, and I eventually did go and see it, and it was still packed 3 weeks later, it's just been a remarkable year for film, and those two have sort of peaked the calendar with that release, with their successes, with further successes due for the pair of them. So that's kind of my initial thoughts segueing into this. Following that, I watched it again in normal IMAX laser the next day at local IMAX, and on day 3 I watched it in a normal cinema non-IMAX. So I've seen 3 different variations, and that's always interesting when you get yourself to a Nolan 4K. You may have seen him recently, there's a few interviews that have gone viral of him talking about streaming services, the importance of home media, stuff like that. We know. I recommend the really good video him and Cillian Murphy did earlier this year. They're just walking around a DVD store in France talking about the industry, picking out films. It's an amazing video, it's 20 minutes. But the insight you can gain from 20 minutes of footage such as that is just remarkable, and it's something that drew me further to this film. And one thing I kind of wanted is, if they're talking about the home media experience, I'm going to kick that talking about the visual side of things, because when Nolan's done his IMAX releases at home, The Dark Knight, obviously one of the very first ones ever done, is very jarring still when you get interweaving cutting between IMAX and normal. And I'm kind of used to it at this point now, obviously, as the years have gone by. More and more of his films use this, and as he said in his interviews, that he does make he consciously chooses what he'll present in IMAX, what he'll present at home in a certain format, and what he isn't going to. Dunkirk, almost the entire film is shot in IMAX, I think, just except for the the sequences on the boat. So it's always been interesting, again, rewatching his work on home media. And the Oppenheimer one did not disappoint. Visually, it's one of the best looking films of the year. I'm not just talking spectacle, I'm not just talking the film, the way it's shot on film format, but the transfer of this onto disc, to be able to watch at home, it just looks better than everything else. And it's on a 4K, it should look good. And I always maintain this. And people, it's really tricky doing these reviews sometimes because you're saying, does it look good, does it not? Yes, visually this looks good, but it also looks like it's had the attention to detail that a director's input would have on this. Not every film has the luxury of a director overseeing their 4K releases. And sometimes when directors oversee 4K releases, they make some wild changes. I know that the James Cameron stuff's all been announced. I'll be trying to cover as much of these as possible, but digital scrubbing, stuff like that. And of course, with Nolan, shot on film, if there's grain, there's grain. And it's done in such a unique way with this that visually you just can't compare it. It's immediately the best disc of the year, the best film I picked up, the best quality film, audio-wise as well. They're not opting for Dolby Atmos. Again, Nolan shoots analog with his films. So it was very interesting with that side of things as well. And again, I can't fault the audio. People will talk about his audio in his other films, which is very understandable. But for this one, I have no issue. I had no issue at the cinema. I have no issue at home. The audio track itself, I think, is once again remarkable. And the look and the sound. And what I couldn't get over, and I remember doing this at the cinema, was the sequence when there's just 4 scientists just walking over an American football pitch. The fact that not only that scene had tension, but with the music and the stair scene, of course, not the stair scene, the gymnasium scene after the bomb's been dropped, everything that sounded insane at the cinema still sounds amazing at home. Now, of course, that will always depend upon your setup, what you've invested into a home media setup, what you haven't. But certainly for me, it is something that I find very important. And this film delivered with that, which was very exciting. And one of the other things I was really interested to hear more about was the special features. His other films, sometimes they're lax with it, sometimes they're really good with it, but this was the one where I knew we'd be getting justice, and we absolutely did. So there are 4 special feature sequences in this film. I say one's a documentary. There is a literal documentary. I'm going to kickstart with that one first. I'm going to save the best one to last. I'm going to talk about each of the others. To End All War, Oppenheimer and the Atomic Bomb. This is a real-life 1 hour 20-minute documentary that was released in June over on NBC in America. Now, you might be wondering, NBC is going to crop up again in a minute. NBC, of course, owned by Universal. Universal, the distributor of the film, the first, of course, Nolan 4K film that is not Warner Brothers, which is really interesting, worth bringing up. Still waiting on 4K releases for Memento. Following's just had a brand new Blu-ray, but of course, Insomnia 2. But this was where I was really intrigued. And I didn't watch this documentary per se, but the special features for this film, if we're going to have a director talk about the importance of home media, about the disc utilisation, I know that Guillermo del Toro has spoke recently about similar items. It is important to not just put things needlessly in there. There's a whole row of trailers. You can rewatch with the trailers, which I actually like doing, because the IMAX trailer for this that premiered with Avatar was incredible, and it was a different trailer that other people got released. So even looking back at the trailer stuff, I thought was very interesting. There's a sequence called Innovation of Film, 65mm black and white film in Oppenheimer. I'm reading these properly, so I don't want to get these wrong. This is almost a Kodak featurette talking about how they developed the black and white 65mm footage, how the test came to them. We speak with some of the people that worked on this. They've got people they fly over from France to America to be involved in creating this, and it was really interesting getting a process to seeing negatives. And of course, Hoyt van Hoytma, they speak to in this, and he also explains that it isn't the hardest thing to do in the world to shoot on film. It may sound it may come across as it, but it is not as hard. Now, from a professional standpoint, of course, digitally, people at home that do videos and stuff, the world's a very different place now. But certainly, let's say hypothetically I was a director one day, if I had the budget, I would shoot on film at least once for the curiosity to see the difference. We know that June's now getting 17mm IMAX release, even though it's shot digitally. It is really interesting following that sort of stuff. So I do hope film is done more. The more I've seen projections of film, especially modern projections of modern films such as this, it's just head and shoulders beyond everything you've seen before. But I also appreciate the market isn't there, the speciality isn't there, the cost for some cinemas to bring in the staff to be able to do these properly, to clean them properly. The last thing you want is to watch a film on film and it actually be, a terrible experience because it's not been treated with the right care and attention. And that's got nothing to do with the 4K, but that's just something I wanted to bring up. Another thing I'm going to be talking about, documentary, not a documentary as such, but this was an event that was publicised. It took place during the SAG strike. So it's a Q&A. It's called Meet the Press. Very simple name. Could have done it a bit nicer, because what this actually is, it's the scientists, current day scientists involved. So it's in July the 15th. It's again, the strike's been on for a couple of days. This was this big event in New York. People may have remember seeing photos of it, but Christopher Nolan does a Q&A. He is joined by Kai Bird, who co-wrote American Prometheus, which of course this is based off. It's also got Kip Thorne, who was involved with the Interstellar as well, for people that know the Nolan films. And they've also got Tom Mason and Carlos Rovelli. All of these are doctors, is worth saying. So to have a Q&A with the doctors talking, not doctors, scientists, obviously they're doctors by trade, to see the scientists talking about this was really interesting. And once again, it's seeing Christopher Nolan, a director of film, in theory nothing to do with Oppenheimer, being recognised by the community and industry to which Oppenheimer had his effect. That is always the sign of a very, very good film, let alone contribution. And I know that he's picked up an award recently, and I think it's the first ever director to get an award and be recognised by the scientific community. But I'm going to talk about the main event. The story of our time, the making of Oppenheimer. A 1 hour 20, I want to call it a documentary. It's split up into 8 chapters. It could be 8 individual featurettes, because it's phased in a way in which it is, but it is shot and done as a film. And I this is the headline for me. This is the stuff I've been wanting to learn about. I know there's a book that's just been released that I need to pick up still, which talks about the making of Oppenheimer, but this is what we've been waiting on, an 8-chapter story, essentially from page to final product. We talk about the inception of the idea, no pun intended, Nolan with the book, how he discussed it, then they bring Kai Bird into it, then it's transitioning from Kai Bird being on set with the actors, with the other people involved, to then talking about the stuff like production design, the behind the scenes. This is a comprehensive guide to everything you would want from this film. Now, it is also worth adding, I mentioned there was an SAG strike, of course that's ended now. This was obviously shot and made whilst it was filming, so we have cast interviews, we have Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, Robert Downey Jr., Alden Ehrenreich. I mean, the cast is incredible. There are so many people that are contributing, and it isn't like a Q&A. They're not just chucked in there to talk about the film. When they've got something to say, when they're talking about their experiences on the project, this documentary delivers with that, and some of the behind-the-scenes stuff is exactly what I hoped it would be. There's a really cool part where they're looking at the real-life locations. They can't go to Los Alamos because obviously it's become an actual, since 1940s, it's evolved. You can't film in the exact spots. However, they were then able to go to some of the real life spots. And in typical Christopher Nolan fashion, here's Oppenheimer's house where he lived. They want to shoot in there. They're allowed to shoot in there. They get the access to. And then in the surrounding areas, in the towns, then there is suddenly all these modern things like a Starbucks and sort of retail and whatnot. And then this is showing them sort of, rather than just digitally getting rid of it, they're just putting trees down, they're putting plants down, they're blocking it for the camera so they can still shoot on location without needing CGI. And it's just a reminder, the lengths that some filmmakers will go to do that, to do it practically, to do it in person, and it does always look better for doing so. And this is what this documentary does. It does a really good way at exploring that behind the scenes to see how this film has ended up the way it has, the effect some of this little thing behind the scenes would have on the cast. Cillian Murphy talking about shooting in Oppenheimer's real life house and what that meant for him as an actor invested in this project. And Robert Downey Jr. has got a great one where they're actually at Princeton, and he speaks about his experience being there, again, being on the set, being in the real historical place. Tom Conti playing Einstein's got some great lines in there, and he went full, I almost said Freddie Mercury, no, Rami Malek's not in the interview, but Tom Conti does talk about his role as Einstein, and as Austin Butler did last year, he also doesn't drop the accent until the DVD commentary is done. So it's a great documentary, and it's a kind of nice way to talk about this review. This is a bit longer than other 4K UHD reviews. I know I didn't speak too much about the video and the audio side of things. I really can't not fault them. It's as simple as that, and I can't fault this film. It's the best film of the year. I'm going to be rooting for it for our Oscar season. You've seen me in other videos of the quad poster up. That's going to be coming back soon with some really cool additions to it. But it's an exciting time, and do I end this saying, do I recommend this film? Obviously I do. And one thing I'm going to say, this was sold out on 4K on Amazon. I've not seen a 4K film sold out that's a new release before. Someone tell me if they have, but people are choosing to buy this in the 4K UHD format. And this is where I'm going with this review and other reviews, that not everybody is going to watch a film the way people want them to. So not everyone's going to pay the extra to go to the cinema. They'll wait for streaming, which is a massive issue we face as an industry. Some people are also going to do the same. They're going to pay for a DVD. They might have a 4K player, but if they want a copy, maybe they just want a DVD or maybe they want a Blu-ray. But to see people actively going for the 4K, I thought was really interesting. And it's the same logic. Yes, I've purchased the 4K Steelbook. It's going to look great in my Nolan collection. And at the same time, it does make me think that who is going to be picking this up on other formats if they didn't already have the top tier one? Maybe this will be the first disc people are buying in 4K, etc., etc. So it's not slighting anybody that purchases other formats. Not everyone. I mean, DVD still sells more than Blu-ray and 4K. But it's really interesting to see, again, the audiences that almost choose to go to the cinema, that choose to go to IMAX, are going to be the same ones choosing to purchase physical media and to purchase specific versions of it on physical media. So that's how I'm going to round out this review. It's a bit different, but I do want to hear from people at home, so please do comment your thoughts. If you've picked this up, what you thought of it, any scenes in particular wowed you at home, was it a different experience to being at the cinema, or did you see it on IMAX, your thoughts on the film, comment all of that stuff. The 4K reviews are going to stick with us. In January, we're going to be launching a new series. There's a couple of videos you can see on the playlist where it's teased and it's spoken about. That's going to kickstart in January, and the first video is going to be me going through my entire home media collection. Still not sure if I'm going to include vinyls. I might do that separately down the line. But it's going to round this video. Once again, thank you all for watching, for listening, and be sure to join us on the next one. Take care.